Alright, take one last look. The Dana 35 is coming out. Alright, the only thing holding on now is the U-bolts. Alright, there we go. It's out. This Dana 35 looks so wimpy next to this 8.8. Alright, I'm going to ditch this shim plate here because that is effectively lowering the Jeep by that much. So when I weld my new spring pads on, I don't want that. I've been staring at this Dana 35 for almost half an hour now because it just didn't look right. And then I got to, I put this long level on here and was looking at it some more, and this axle is bent. I don't know how well it's going to come across on camera, but you can really tell in person. I got it pretty much squared up with the tube on that side, and when you come down this and look here, it's kicked over to the left a little, and it's obviously bent on this side, and it's the camera doesn't look as bad on the camera, but you can really tell in person. Alright, here's another way I'm going to try to explain how bent it is. So that pinion yoke is perfectly flat on the floor, and that level is perfectly pushed up against it, completely square. Okay? So on this side, spring perch to the level is about 9 3/8-ish. On this side, spring perch to the level is 8 1/4. This axle is bent. I don't know how else to make that clear if it's not already. So this axle is bent, and it's never had more than 31-inch tires on it. That's the biggest tire that's ever been on it. I'm sure someone will say, you don't know how the previous owner treated it, or you don't know what he did, or something like that. But it doesn't matter. The axle is junk, and it's going straight to the scrapyard. I'm not even going to try to put it on Craigslist and sell it. I'm taking it straight to the scrapyard. So here's all my swap parts laid out on the workbench that I'm going to be installing. I got spring plates, U-bolts, shock mounts, etc. This is from Barnes. This right here is a kit from Power Stop that I got from Rock Auto. It's new pads, new calipers, and new rotors. This is a diff cover from Solid Axle. This is the rear upper shock mounts from Moore. This is what's going to raise the upper shock mount up higher on the frame so that I can raise the lower shock mounts up on the axle but still have the same amount of travel in my existing shocks that I've already got. Spartan locker, since I don't have the limited slip. This is a brake kit from East Coast Gear Supply. So this is their e-brake cables and their new brake lines that are going to tie right into the YJ. This is a yoke flange adapter so that I can bolt my 1310 U-joint that's on my drive shaft directly to the 8.8 flange. And this is a set of wheel spacers from Spider Tracks. They're 1.25 inches. So that's all the swap parts. Like I said, not the cheap way to do it, but I've spread this cost out over the last year, and I'm really excited to get everything installed and get these boxes off my table. Alright, so first things first, these little nubs need to get ground off, and I'm also going to bevel all the edges that I'll be welding, and I'm going to bevel this edge just a little bit too, just so there's not a sharp point resting right on the leaf spring. Hey, this is Future Will talking to you now after the swap is already done. Make sure that if you use these same perches, these same aftermarket spring perches that I'm using, make sure you cut them down to like 4 3/4 inches length, overall length, because they're designed for spring over, and if you use them spring under, it's going to cause some issues, you know, with the spring binding and not being able to flex and that sort of thing. So I didn't do that at first, so I had to go back and trim them down afterwards, but it's all good now and everything worked out. So just something to keep in mind. Or you can reuse the factory perches off of the Explorer axle or the Dana axle or whatever you want to do. And I think Rough Stuff makes some perches that are specific to spring under, but whatever, no big deal. It worked out fine. Just, you know, something to keep in mind if you stay spring under. Alright, so the axle's ready to go in. Before I do that though, while I got plenty of room, I'm going to go ahead and mount these upper shock mounts. These are the upper shock mounts for Moore, and you can see how they work. So that hole goes on the original stud. You drill a hole for that to index in, and then you get an extra 2 inches right there. Alright, I got the first upper shock mount relocation bracket in. I just got to take it off and paint it. Those upper shock mounts, this could have been a video on their own. They were kind of a pain. Drilling that 1/2 inch hole through the frame and through that factory shock mount was pretty difficult. I have really nice DeWalt Cobalt bits, like made in Germany bits, that still took forever. And I had to cut part of the factory shock mount off and grind it smooth, and grinded a little bit of a contour on the new upper shock mounts as well. But I got them painted and got them put in, and I'm done with that. So let's actually get the axle in now. Look how strong I am. Alright, I got the U-bolts snugged up. I got the adapter flange on, and my drive shaft and U-joint and everything buttoned up. It's in there. Now I'm going to set the pinion angle at 13 just as a starting point with a bottle jack. Then I'll put the wheels and tires on it and set it down on the floor, bounce on it a couple times, make sure the weight's settled, and then set the pinion angle for real based on, you know, its relation to the drive shaft. 13. I've also measured this axle several times from side to side, and I'm right at 5 3/16 from the back of the caliper bracket to the leaf spring on both sides. Whenever I re-gear this axle, I'll pay more attention to this end of it. You know, I'll put new park and brake shoes and, you know, that sort of stuff on it. But I'm not going to worry about it right now when I'm getting it swapped in. I'll take care of all that because I'm going to have to disassemble it anyway when I take the, when I take the carrier out to do the gears. I'll have to pull the shaft, and then I'll be able to get all that stuff at that point. pretty. Alright, so I finally got the axle where I want it. I set it up with a full tank of gas, the rear seat is in it, and I've got like some extra weight in the back just to kind of simulate a hard top or the bigger spare tire that I'm eventually going to have, or camping gear or whatever. I bounced on it a little bit too just to make sure the suspension was all settled in. I got everything tightened up, so now I'm going to tack in the spring perches and then I'll measure and tack in the shock mounts. Alright, I got everything tacked in place, including the shock mounts. Haven't done the brake lines yet, but haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do that. I'll probably mock that up outside of the Jeep on the jack stands, just so I can get to it easier. Alright, I got it out. I'm going to fully weld it now, and I quit messing around and just dropped the leaf springs. Alright, it's go time. No turn back now. Alright, so I'm about halfway done welding it. I'm, welding it maybe like 3 or 4 inches at a time, and then I just let it cool off on one side. Go to the other side, weld 3 or 4 inches, whatever, and just trying to be smart about how much heat I'm putting into it at one time. I gotta say though, welding mild steel, so much better than welding cast. I'm not, like I said up before, I'm not a professional welder, but I'm very happy with the way the welds are looking and the penetration that I'm getting out of this little 110 Lincoln. Alright, the axle is fully welded, so now I'm working on the brake lines. I forgot about this little ABS sensor. You can get a freeze plug to put in that and make it look super clean, but I just filled that empty section at the top with epoxy so the dirt and stuff doesn't get in there and settle, and I'll just paint over it like it is. You'll never see it. For the brake lines, I'm trying to figure out how I want to mount them so that the U-bolts and everything clear and they don't get pinched by something. So I'm thinking here or here, or I also have these bump stop pads from the Dana 35. They're too small to fit the Ford 8.8 tube, but I'm thinking I can maybe cut them down a little down here and then just weld this directly to the tube, and then it's already got holes if I want to put, like a taller bump stop or something on it, which I might need to do when I go to 35s. And then maybe I could drill a hole right here and bolt this to the side like that so the brake lines are higher up and out of the way. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to keep messing with it. I love this Portabane. Look at that. So something like that. Something like this. Directly above the spring perch. Just weld it on. Alright, so here's my idea with the brake lines. I got this bump stop pad welded onto the tube, and I drilled 2 holes in it and tapped them for 1/4 bolts. It's a 1/4 inch piece of steel, so that's plenty of threads for these little bolts, and it's not like this is structural or anything. So now the soft line has plenty of flex. It's real low. routed out of the way. Brake lines will be up high on the tube and go over. And there's plenty of room for the U-bolts on both sides. Alright, it's time to paint it. I'm going to use some self-etching primer first on the bare metal, and I'm going to use some rust reformer on like the center section and the ends down here where I didn't get all the way in there with the grinder. So I'm going to do one coat of these, and then I will start painting it black. Alright, so I just finished the install of the Spartan locker and the diff cover. Made a separate video about that, mainly just due to run time of this video, but I'm going to pull all the tape off, get the brakes and brake lines and everything ready to go, and then we're going to get this sucker in the Jeep finally. I did have to reuse this. This is off of the Dana 35, this little brake line breather nipple piece. The one that was on this axle from Ford was a little too short to use with the brake line that I'm going to keep using on my Jeep. But it's the same thread pitch, so it just screwed right in. Alright, today's the day. This is going in. Alright, it's about to take the weight for the first time, for real first time. boy. Okay, here they are, the last two parts that I haven't opened yet. These are the e-brake cables. These cables came with this these little rubber washers. I'm pretty sure they go right there. And then when you install it on the axle, you put this clip on. And it's all held tight. I mocked it up on the axle and it looks like that's right. Alright, time to trim these U-bolts. Barnes definitely gives you plenty of extra threads depending on how thick your spring pack is. Alright, it's in there and it's on its own weight. I'm going to go around and torque everything to factory spec, get my wife to help me bleed the brakes, and then we're going for a test drive after I put some gear oil in it. Alright, I got the master cylinder full of fluid, just letting this gravity bleed for a second. Everything is torqued up. Oh yeah, that's going now. Okay, I've got my lovely assistant in the driver's seat. Alright, pump it up. God, that was so much air. Right in my face. Yeah. Alright, let up. How'd the brakes feel? Or how'd the pedal feel?
Good, I guess.
Oh, stop.
Oh, let off? Let off?
Yeah. Alright, brakes are bled. I was about to bleed this side, the driver's side, and then I noticed it was this fitting was leaking right here. Just tightened it up a little. Now it's all good. Topped up the master cylinder and was about to put the wheels on it, hop in it, and go for a cruise, and I saw this. I still need to put gear oil in it. That's why I put stickers on the steering wheel. Alright, I'm going to be using 85-140 just because I have a ton of it on the shelf. Gear oil is one of those things where it's like people are so opinionated about which weight to use and synthetic or whatever, but I'm of the opinion that as long as it has some, it really doesn't matter. Unless you got some fancy, friction additive you have to add. Okay, I think we're ready for a test drive. I think it looks pretty good in there. Alright, there it is. It's on its way. It's got a new axle in it. I'm going to go get changed into something less disgusting, and then I'm going to take it down the road. Alright, success. We took it up the road, made sure it was, driving forward, driving in reverse, and the locker was disengaging and engaging the way it's supposed to. Did a couple circles in a parking lot just to make sure I could hear it clicking. Took it on the dirt and got it kind of twisted up in some ditches again with, just in two-wheel drive, and made sure the locker was working. Stopped facing uphill and hit the gas real hard, made sure that both rear tires would spin, that sort of stuff. And I may or may not have had a little bit of fun on a dirt road. Got a little squirrely coming around some turns. So that's it. I'm sure I'll have a little, some tweaks to do here and there. But that's it. We're good to go. So finally, I got the shop cleaned up. My workbench is finally cleared off for the first time in like a month. All right, so that was a huge project. I'm all done. I think next I'm going to do some shop upgrades. I got a few things that I want to set up for the shop. The hood vent, and probably a transmission and a power steering cooler next, or at some point soon. So that'll probably be the next couple of videos coming out.